I'm joined now by former Hungarian MP Zoltán Kész to talk about the importance of free speech on social media and about the dangers of censorship in countries with autocratic and totalitarian leaders. Good evening, Zoltán. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening. Hi.
Zoltán, first of all, what online censorship are you aware of in your homeland? You know, to give us a sense of what, if anything, is different.
Well, basically, it's not necessarily censorship that we have. It's a whole different media landscape that we're talking about regarding Hungary, especially when you look at who owns the media. For example, I come from a small town, and in this town, there is no chance to watch or enjoy anything that's not owned by the government or the government oligarchs. So that's a kind of censorship in a way. Also, we see self-censorship of journalists who work for papers owned by the government because obviously they don't want to lose their jobs. As far as social media censorship, I haven't seen any example, luckily. I don't want to see any example of social media censorship.
Whatever grounds for a government seeking to take and apply control over what people are seeing and saying?
Basically, what we see in Hungary is not necessarily government censorship itself, it's government control of real media that is not social media. Social media is the only means how we, people in opposition, can communicate with other people. This is how we can, for example, organize ourselves. This is how we can organize protests. This is how we can let the people know what we think of the world. Otherwise, for example, I had personal experiences when I was a member of parliament that traditional media totally ignored me. They basically claimed that I was non-existent. They did not report about me. I can count on one hand how many times I appeared on local news, for example. And this is a kind of censorship of traditional media by the government, or I would say control by the government. Social media, luckily, we still use that to our advantage in a way.
What was it that you were seeking to say that was being silenced in that way by your apparent invisibility?
Oh, well, a lot of things, actually. I mean, I experienced firsthand what it means when a full smear campaign is going on against me. Let me just give you a short story, if we have time for that, like a 1-minute story, how I lost the election back in 2018. There was a smear campaign against me in which they claimed that I received millions of Hungarian money from another politician. They had news about it everywhere. Basically, they showed a picture of me having dinner with this other person. The problem is that out of the 2 people in the picture, neither was me. So I went on the campaign trail the following days, and I came across a very interesting experience. There were people who were like calling out my name and saying, "Hey, you received those millions of Hungarian forints." And I said, "Look, this is the picture. Which one is me?" And you know what the answer was? "But you were on TV." And I say, "Do you believe your eyes or the television?" And they said the TV. And that's when I knew that I was going to lose the election, because I had no means except for social media to counter this kind of smear campaign.
I've got a guest here in the studio with me, Zoltán. Ingrid, it is fascinating the extent to which we're so vulnerable, isn't it, to what we are shown.
Yes. Oh, God.
Even making those decisions about, am I even looking at something that's real and true? Because the weight of its being on the television seems to persuade us otherwise.
Yeah. Well, that is probably the most widely relied on medium. Not many people read newspapers anymore. They do it online. But I would love to ask Zoltán a question, if I may. Is he still there?
Yes. Go on.
Zoltán, I would be very interested to know how you regard the British press. Do you think we're free? Do you think everything's fair and open? And what do you think? How do you see it from Hungary's point of view?
Well, I'm not an expert of the British press, let's put it this way, but still when I read the British press and I read whatever, the news is in Britain, I would choose to be in Britain rather than in Hungary for that reason. I mean, you are welcome to enjoy the hospitality of Viktor Orban's so-called press freedom, but I'd rather say Britain is much better than Hungary.
This is interesting. It's a perception, because I don't think our press is that free. I think we are being forced almost to read what they want us to believe. So it's very interesting here. I think we're not different to Hungary, actually.
Do you see, Zoltán, a direction of travel? You know, you're obviously familiar with, you've been watching, paying attention to British media. You know, have you seen any kind of change? Do you see any, flashing red warning lights?
Well, still not. And I would say that when we talk about, for example, social media, because obviously this is what I wrote about this week in a piece in Euractiv. I believe that when it comes to social media, it's still something that we have to preserve as the means to communicate with people. As a former politician in Hungary, what I could see, and this is a positive note about social media, and for especially Facebook, because that's the most widely used social media in Hungary, that was our only means, again, emphasizing it, to communicate with people. Otherwise, they would not have known what I was doing during my 3 years in Parliament. Without social media, nothing.
Maybe there's hope for us yet here in these islands. Thank you, Zoltán Kész. We'll stay in touch.